Was there a specific moment that inspired you to want to write that particular op-ed?
I will tell you, I read a New York Times piece on a 100-year-old survivor of the Tulsa Massacre. And my question was this: what's the Tulsa Massacre? You know, I was taught American history every 3 years growing up. 5th grade, 8th grade, what comes after 11th grade, and then I studied it in junior college, and I've read it ever since for pleasure. How is it that it wasn't until 2 years ago that I heard about the Tulsa Massacre? How is that possible? I've heard about Custer's Little Bighorn. I heard about the Alamo. I heard about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. I heard about all kinds of disasters in which people died. But I had never heard about this thing that happened in 1921, only 3 years before my dad was born. In the same year that Donna Reed was born, we didn't hear about this thing that happened in which essentially one of the most successful black communities in America, Black Wall Street, in which everybody was not only burned out of their homes and their businesses, but then driven out of the city limits by an angry mob of, I'm sorry, white people. How is it that this was not taught to me? Because I tell you, at the age of 10, when I was in 5th grade, living in Oakland, California, that would have been a moment of enlightenment for me. That would have told me something very, very different about the city I lived in. Not just American history or the city of Tulsa. And it made me mad. It made me mad that somebody had somehow made an editorial process of what was appropriate for us to learn about our own American history. It made me angry that it took until I was, I'm 60, I'll be 66, just about 2 weeks after Juneteenth, I'll turn 66. And it took me 54 years in order to find this out. It's not right. It's not right, and it's doing a disservice to all of America in order to not point out some very, very simple, and dare I say it, facts that can be accepted. I don't want to overuse the word dispassionately, but it can be used dispassionately. That's what happened. Nobody alive today is guilty over of it. Nobody alive today is to blame for it, except perhaps the people who said, let's not talk about that. That's not right. We should be able to talk about all of these aspects so they will teach us more of the fabulous story of our diverse history and understand where we all come from. I knew more about my Portuguese heritage than I did about being black and living in Tulsa in 1921. That's not right. It's not what an education should be, and it's not what the grand, I think, lesson of even something as basic as our Pledge of Allegiance should be when we're going to dare to say the words with liberty and justice for all. We didn't have a moment. That was not liberty and justice for all, and that's not right, and it made me mad.
In the early 1900s, an oil boom in Oklahoma made Tulsa a real estate magnet. Unwelcome in the city's downtown, enterprising black entrepreneurs built up the neighborhood of Greenwood into a booming community. Sadly, the Negro Wall Street, as it was called then, would become the casualty of fraught race relations.
In May of 1921, a young black man entered an elevator where a young white woman was the elevator operator. They were in the elevator alone, and someone heard her scream. He was accused of accosting her.
The young man was arrested and taken to the courthouse for holding. When black Tulsans in Greenwood heard that a lynch mob of white people was gathering at the courthouse, they headed there to defend the young man. In the middle of a tense standoff, a single gunshot rang out. The residents of Greenwood retreated, but that didn't end the tension. The next day, thousands of white people descended, looting Greenwood's businesses and setting fire to homes. Black residents fought back. The National Guard arrived, imposed martial law, then arrested nearly half of Greenwood's population.
This became known as the Tulsa Race Riot, one of the most violent race riots in our nation's history.
The young man was released from the courthouse after the riots ended. The charges against him were dropped when the elevator operator failed to appear at court. Shockingly, nearly 80 years would pass before an official report would be commissioned. The report found that more than 1,200 homes had been burned, and it estimated that up to 300 people had been killed, the overwhelming majority black. Recently, a typewritten eyewitness account of the riot, donated to the Smithsonian, described airplanes dropping firebombs from the sky, black people being gunned down in the streets, and it posed the question, is the city in conspiracy with the mob? Those who survived faced homelessness and the daunting task of attempting to rebuild in a city that didn't want Greenwood and all that it symbolized. Slowly, Greenwood's residents recovered, though the Black Wall Street never returned to its glory days, and memories of the violence continue to haunt descendants even to this day. A full century later, some are still searching for the dead.